What's happening, guys? In today's video we're going to go over macros and what macros actually are and why we use them in trading. So a macro is essentially a kill zone. Volume is pumped into the market by institutions, and these macro windows basically offer high probability setup chances because that's where all the volume is being pumped in at those certain times. Now there's three macro windows what we actually look at to trade, and I'm going to go through the actual times when they happen. So the first macro window is 9:45 to 10:15 a.m. This is New York time. So this is the first macro window. Once 10:15 hits, you've got a 30-minute window of which we don't trade. We're not taking any trades within that because the macro's done. The second macro is 10:45 to 11:15 a.m. Now this is the second window of opportunity where we look to take trades. There is a third window which happens between 11:45 and 12:15, but we don't typically look to trade on that one because it runs into the lunch hour, and that's when volume starts to drop off a little bit towards that third macro. And I personally think that if you're still looking for a trade by that time, you may be forcing it a little bit for the actual setup to appear. So we don't tend to trade this one. We'll just look for these two as these most high probable setups, as they're still in the AM session when the actual institutions are looking to get in. This is just running into their lunch hour a little bit, so volume does start to die off pretty quickly, and you do notice that as well in the market. So here you can see we've marked out these vertical lines, and these actually represent the time windows what you have within the actual trading session. So if we go into the 1 minute time frame, it will look like this. So you've got a big window here, big 30-minute windows, and then you've got a 30-minute window you don't trade, and then you've got another 30 window what you do trade, and then so on and so forth, like that. Now this is a trade I actually took on Thursday, on the 18th. My entry was actually at 9:54. So what we had here was a bearish order block put in just before the first macro, and we ran straight through that, inversing this order block, which gave us a breaker block. Then we waited for the tap back into that fair value gap to then take the opposing draw, which was here. And that's how we utilise the actual macros. This is just a great example of the actual volume that's pumped into the session within this macro time. What I would advise you doing is actually just writing down a note of these windows, and then actually when we get on the charts we actually mark them out, pre-planned mark them out, so we know and we don't forget about the actual windows what we're trying to trade within. So jot those down, and also when you come onto the charts, mark these vertical lines out. Just use this tool here, vertical line. This is another example of a trade that I took within the first AM macro. So we've got 9:45 there, 10:15 here. So we've got a sweep of a short-term high and a breakthrough with a candle body close below this bullish order block, creating a bearish breaker block with a fair value gap presented inside. And then we waited for the tap back in to this fair value gap, and then we was in, and it was coming up towards the end of the first AM macro. There is when we hit TP on it. Trading these macros actually just gives you a set time frame, and it's just consistent with what you're doing basically. You know, there's no waffle about when you should be trading or trying to force entry models at certain times that don't even make sense. Like, just gives you a consistent time frame to trade, so you're not sat on the charts for absolute hours. It gives you an hour and 30 minutes to look for a valid setup. You know, that's not too long and it's not too short either. So you're not sat on the charts for hours on end, questioning yourself, thinking, oh, I've got an inverse fair value gap here. Oh, is this the model? When no, it's not the model. So yeah, this is why we use the macros as well. It just gives you some actual metrics to measure on the consistency of your actual trading. One other key point I want to mention is that we do not trade outside of these macro times. So when we come into this gap here, this is your 30 minutes of not doing anything, sitting on your hands and waiting for a model to actually appear. It It doesn't matter if you find the cleanest setup within this window, you are not taking it. It's not part of our model on how we actually trade. It's got to be within this macro, and this macro. I don't care if you see the cleanest model present itself outside a macro window, you don't trade it. It's not part of what we're doing. If you want to stay disciplined, you're taking it within these windows of opportunity and the most high probable setups within these as well. So that's basically all we need to cover on macros, to be honest. Make sure you jot these numbers down, these times, and then put it into practice on the actual charts as well. So thank you for watching.